So, you know that feeling, right? Glaring at your keyboard at 2 in the morning, practically begging your protagonist to just spit it out and tell their partner what's wrong? Yeah, we've all been there. Welcome back to The Explainer. I'm putting on my fiction editor hat today to share one of the most powerful narrative tools you can possibly use in your storytelling. We are going to dive into how you can use the demon of emotional weather to literally force your characters to speak their deeply suppressed truths. So, grab your notebooks, let's fix those stubborn characters.
Look, as an editor, I see this literally all the time. Authors struggling with characters who are just stuck, trapped in this stagnant emotional crisis. You know the exact scenario. Two lovers are hiding their true feelings out of fear, or maybe a kingdom is covering up some massive, rotting secret from its past. The tension is supposed to be off the charts, but instead, the story just stalls out. The characters can't naturally break their silent stalemates, and they settle into this suffocating routine. And let me tell you, there is absolutely nothing worse than the agony a reader feels when a story stalls in this kind of false peace. You're just left waiting for something, anything to happen, while the characters stubbornly refuse to communicate.
Well, here's a brilliant fix for that stalemate, turning those private, unspoken feelings into devastating, highly visible weather events. Think about it. When a character's emotional conflict is entirely internal, it's practically invisible to the reader. And it's way too easy for the character to just avoid it. They can hide from a tough conversation, right? But when we translate that internal turmoil into an external meteorological disaster, good luck hiding from a flash flood. You can't just ignore a hurricane. So we're going to look at a captivating mythological archetype that literally turns the unsaid into the unavoidable.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. The problem with silence. 2. Enter Furfur, the 34th spirit. 3. Mirroring turmoil with weather. 4. Visualizing the fiery stag. 5. Forcing the suppressed truth. And finally, 6. Staging the burning rain. Let's get into it.
Starting off with Section 1, the problem with silence, trapped in the calm. Let's talk about the massive narrative hurdle of characters mistaking silence for actual peace. Let me be blunt. Comfort is the absolute enemy of the plot. If a kingdom or a pair of lovers are hiding a crime or an unspoken desire, you need a catalyst to shatter that false calm before your story completely flatlines. As an author, you absolutely cannot let your characters get away with living a lie. When relationships are already unstable and people mistake a lack of arguing for peace, that calm is really just allowing lies to settle and fester. Your job as a writer is to bring the storm that brutally reveals the cracks that were already there.
Moving right along to Section 2. Enter Furfur, the Great and Mighty Earl. This brings us to our ultimate literary device and narrative catalyst. This brings us to a really fascinating figure from the Ars Goetia, Furfur. Traditionally, he's the 34th spirit, a great and mighty earl who is said to command 26 legions. What's wild is that he bridges this incredibly unique gap between thunder, love, and hidden divine secrets. I always find it to be such a beautifully bizarre combination, a demon who commands both the most intimate moments of human love and the most massive, destructive thunderstorms. Now, obviously, we aren't using him for actual occult practice here. We're using him as a story catalyst for characters in crisis. Because he governs both intimate emotion and public disaster all at once, he is the ultimate storm that reveals what calm weather allowed people to hide.
Which brings us to Section 3, Mirroring Turmoil with Weather, the Demon of Emotional Weather. Let's see how this actually builds into an actionable tool for your writing.
Desire as thunder, truth as lightning. Just take a second to absorb the poetry of that. The crucial point here is that Furfur acts as the demon of emotional weather. He turns internal emotional conflict into external meteorological disasters, where a private, intimate confession immediately scales up to become thunder across the kingdom. In your fiction, this means you need to shift the literal barometric pressure in your scenes right before a character confesses. Make the air grow thick and unbreathable. Every single confession should literally change the weather, and every thunderclap should sound like a secret violently breaking open. He really embodies this archetype of the storm-hearted noble.
His very presence demands that secrets stop rotting in silence. His unique gift to a story is sudden revelation and emotionally charged transformation, but the price he extracts is public scandal. He brings truths that damage just as much as they liberate. When he enters your story, environmental shifts must perfectly mirror the character's internal turmoil. If your protagonist is boiling with suppressed rage, the sky shouldn't just rain, it should hail. It should flood the streets.
There's a quote I think about constantly. Peace is only silence that has not yet been struck. Imagine your character out in the wilderness, encountering this wind-torn entity. The sensory experience is just overwhelming. The wind is howling so loudly it physically hurts their ears, and over the roar of that gale, Furfur speaks with a hoarse, strained voice, warning them that their fragile, deceitful world is about to break. And he doesn't just hand over the truth neatly on a silver platter, either. He speaks in riddles. His words are incredibly difficult to parse because his truth is completely tangled up with wild weather and raw, unfiltered emotion. He represents the sheer violence of revelation.
All right, Section 4. Visualizing the fiery stag, high-stakes aesthetics. To really make this pop on the page, you have to master the visual language.
Think about your characters encountering these highly specific colors and shapes, a striking combination of woodland grace and destructive flame. The traditional description of Furfur is a hart with a fiery tail. It's an elegant, sacred-looking creature, sure, but it's dangerous enough to set the entire forest aflame. Envision the incredible juxtaposition of that bright, ember orange crackling and hissing against the backdrop of an endless, suffocating storm-gray sky. You want the reader to almost smell the smoke mingling with the ozone of the rain. This visual perfectly encapsulates innocence marked by extreme danger, and it instantly builds immense narrative tension.
As a writer, you're essentially directing the reader's eye like a camera. You want to use high contrast and rapid lightning flashes to build that narrative tension and mirror the sudden, violent revelation of truth. Because, let's face it, some truths don't arrive as careful, gentle explanations. They strike like lightning, they split the sky, and they leave the world brutally bright for one terrifying second. You achieve this in your prose by changing up your sentence structure. Instead of long, flowing, descriptive paragraphs, hit them with short, punchy, fragmented sentences. Like, the sky broke, the tree fell, she finally said she hated him. By using rain-smeared vision and silhouettes lit only by erratic lightning, you're placing the reader directly inside the character's chaotic mental state.
Section 5. Forcing the suppressed truth, the mechanics of revelation. Now we address how exactly to structure scenes where characters finally break their silence.
Because Furfur represents the raw violence of revelation without form, he is just rumor and passion. Truth needs a strict boundary before it can be safely heard. In the occult tradition, Furfur must be commanded into a magical triangle to speak clearly. Now, for our fictional purposes, this triangle motif represents the narrative need for boundaries. What does a strict boundary mean in a story? It means physically trapping your characters in a ruined cellar during a tornado. It means giving them a ticking clock. It means an inescapable carriage ride in the pouring rain. Before the storm can pass, their chaotic, swirling emotions must be forced into a specific, unavoidable shape.
And here is your character's ultimate way out of the crisis. They must courageously confront their suppressed truths and name their emotions out loud to dispel the catastrophic weather. Furfur actually loses his terrifying power the exact second that chaos is placed inside honest boundaries. The storm ends only when the character stops lying to themselves and stops lying to the people around them. It is the ultimate, urgent push from an editor. Make your characters confess, or let the storm destroy their world.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 6, Staging the Burning Rain, Constructing the Scene. Let's put this all together by analyzing a specific narrative hook.
Think of this next part like a campfire story. When you're drafting a scene featuring this archetype, you want to follow a very specific progression to hook the reader. There's this narrative framework called the stag and the burning rain, where a village sees a flaming-tailed hart before every catastrophic storm. When a hunter follows it, he realizes the storm isn't just random weather, it's actively revealing buried secrets from the village's grim past.
But before the storm even hits, you have to establish the internal turmoil. Make the humidity in the village stifling. The dogs won't stop howling. The unspoken guilt of the town elders makes the air feel literally toxic. You start with these unsettling environmental omens, you escalate with a massive meteorological shift, and then you detonate with the public revelation.
It all comes down to sensory amplification. Imagine writing a line like this. The first sign was not thunder, but hoofprints burned into the wet road. By morning, the forest smelled of rain and ash. The hunters found no animal, only a line of blackened grass leading toward the old ruined chapel, where lovers once swore a doomed vow of silence. As the hunters follow the trail, panic sets in. They drop their bows. The pressure in the air becomes heavy enough to crush their lungs. The sky doesn't just darken. The clouds aggressively shear together, twisting into massive, unnatural geometric shapes, slowly forming a dark triangle directly over the chapel. Then, a hoarse voice speaks from the lightning. It's atmospheric, it is intensely tense, and it completely forces the characters to stop hiding.
So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative question for your own writing. Are you letting your characters hide comfortably behind their lies, or are you finally ready to summon the lightning? If their peace is just an unspoken secret, bring in the fiery stag. Let the storm break their silence, and watch your story come alive.